annualized rate at the end of the year for the second half, and then that push us up to 1.3% for a year. And then it will stay around 1.5% for most of the time for the forecast horizon based on S&P. Moody's a little bit higher, above trend, beginning in 2027. Same thing with unemployment for the country. You see 2025, 26, 4.9. Last time when we were here, the unemployment rate for the country was supposed to be peaked at 4.5%, and now it's up to 5.1 and 4.8. A lot of this have a lot to do with recent tariff announcement, things like that. However, the key assumption here is the S&P forecast did not assume the full April 2nd announcement to went into effect, which it did not. So that's the baseline forecast. If from their report, what they're saying is if the tariffs are significantly not moving away from that announcement, then there's probably a recession coming down the road. But that is not what they've been calling yet. So just keep that in mind. If there's a recession, the forecast will change significantly. Same thing with monetary policy. Now, basically, the S&P will not assume a rate cut until December meeting. Moody assumed 3 rate cuts this year. So that's the difference from both services. His inflation forecast, 4% for this quarter, up to 5.7. The next quarter, this is quarter-over-quarter annualized rate. And then it's stabilized at 3.6 and 2.7 for the rest of the 2025 year. Then 26, that's when it started coming down. Again, this is all due to the tariff assumption built into the model of S&P and Moody. Overall, if we look at the federal Philadelphia Fed Index, we see both economy. So the red line is Nebraska, right? So it's based on the number of non-farm payroll employment, average hour worked, unemployment rate, and then they all convert into an index to basically allow us to compare the growth rate of each of the state, of 50 states, to the average of the United States, right? To average of all states. We see that they're growing pretty much similarly, and this is why we are able to use the national number provided by S&P and Moody to drive the forecast. What we do is we look for correlation. So as long as that two lines move in the same direction, relatively similar slope, then they grow in relatively at the same rate. Here is more Nebraska data on non-motor vehicle net taxable sales. You can see here the line here is kind of flat out. Actually declining, and then start to pick up at a lot slower rate. If you look at the slope right there, it's a lot flatter compared to this whole pandemic era and when we get out. Non-farm employment also see flatlining over the last few months. We don't pick up employment as fast as when we came out. So, but it's basically going back to trend before pandemic. So it's not like we're losing employment. So, but it's growing at a slow rate, and that's have an impact on withholding payment. All right, now the fun part. This is fiscal year to date forecast comparison. So this is basically 1 month of data that we got from March from the forecast, right? Sales and use tax, we down by 12 million. Individual about 3 million, corporate up by 10, miscellaneous down by 7. So on net, it's about 13.3%. You can see that 12.3% very clearly, but it's about 12.3% of the forecast that we put together, that the board put together back in February. That number does not include April because it's not done yet, but this is our best estimate for April. We are looking at sales tax to be very much in line, 3 million off, but the key here is individual income tax and corporate income tax. Individual income tax, we are looking at about 200 million off the forecast from the cash flow that we put together based on the forecast number. The main component of that, if you look up here, withholding, we're about 20 million behind. Final, we pretty much right on final. We only 8 million off. Estimate pretty much right on. But if you look here, individual income tax refund, so we put in 120 million for April. It looks like it's going to be like 300 million. Part of that is there's a lot of PTET refund for package 23 that just got pushed out. For the last few meetings, I keep saying that the assumption we built into our forecast is 5 to 10% of the PTET will go unplanned, and that get added into the forecast. That assumption is no longer true, so that's pretty much all that money is gone. And then corporate, we just running behind right now. So looking like we are about 250 million, 260 million behind for this April. So you add that to the 12 million, that's between what 375 is.
Hey, Wafu, so how much of this slide is actual versus estimate? I mean, is this like actual versus through the 15th or the 20th or?
No, this is actually through yesterday, and then I also add in what we expected for the next few days.
So it's only estimated 3 or 4 days, and it's
so this is the total of what we think April will end up being. It will deviate from that number, but I don't think we have much money to expect from the next 4 days. Some withholding, but not much. Because withholding due on the 30th, the last day of the month, so some of the money will show up.
So how much of the 174 is from PTET? The refunds?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. Because PTET don't really play into refund by itself, it's also reducing final payment. So when a person claims the PTET credit and then they get a refund, that refund not necessarily just because of and some of that PTET amount. I will have a slide that coming up that I think we have better question. Because I think the movement of money from October this year to April is a real thing, right? So you probably get less of refund coming out in April, in October when the extension came in, compared to now. But the issue is, if this is the trend, then you will have October 27 moving into April 27. So it's just like a frog, literally backwards. So you're not getting any more money in this.
Yeah, and you're anticipating my next question, which is how much of this is going to happen on a year-to-year basis? Because I know that some of this is probably left over from that 1 5-year catch-up that we did. But
I have a PTET slide coming up. But before I walk away from the slide, what we assume in this forecast that we sent out to you before this information become final, because when we put the forecast together, it's early in April, we don't have all this data, all this information. So we build in about 340 million for refund for April, May, and June of 2025, right? But then this month, we already eat up 300 million of that. So there's only 40 million left, roughly, for the next 2 months, which will not be enough. So if I run the forecast today again, I probably will add another 50 million to that individual refund, which lower the individual income tax net receipt by 50 million. We also build in the forecast 200 million for the corporate receipt for April. Apparently, we're not going to get that. So we probably get 150 million. So I believe our forecast is also 50 million higher in corporate income tax for this particular fiscal year. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is the forecast that we send out probably have 50 million under for individual income tax and then 50 million under for corporate income tax. So it's actually 100 more million worse than what we sent out.
So now you've got me real confused. Is the 100, so you're saying that some of the refunds that would have been that you predicted would come in May and June have been drawn forward to April,
Not all of it, right?
but some
So,
to the extent of,
so for the 3 months, we bill in 350 million in refund, right? But April, we already have 300 million back. When the T-test slide show up, we still have about 160 million to pay out, to be claimed, I should say pay out, to be claimed. So some of that will get paid out in May and June. And then the October month, we will get less of that, of payment out. That's the next fiscal year, right?
I totally understand that. So now take me down to the bottom of that 259.
Yeah.
What's in, that's going to go back up because we've drawn forward some of the May.
259 is for April only.
Yeah.
So yes, it will go back up because the forecast that I sent out show 130 million roughly decline from the board forecast, right? So if you add another 80 to 100 million to that, that's giving you about 200 million down compared to forecast. This number shows 260 plus the 12 million we're behind. So I think we will make up about 80 million to that for the next 2 months. That answer the question?
I just want to make certain I'm understanding. The original forecast you sent out in the material, based upon your forecast for April now. The original forecast overstates corporate income by 50 million and
Yes.
overstates individual income by a similar amount, 50
Yes.
million. Total of 100 million.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's for 24, 25?
Yes.
And how does that flow through into the future years as we look at the projection?
The future year, if this trend continues, so the PTAT, what we assume in the PTAT is 350 million going forward, like on an annual basis, right? So of that, most of that will go to affect estimated payment, refund, and final payment, right? So the reason we see a lot of payment this year now is I believe people are claiming that PTAT a lot faster. So the October one, you're not going to see a refund coming out. But if you want to move back money, you have to take it all the way at the end of the line, right? So which is never going to happen because I think PTAT is here to stay. Because you move 1 year up and then you have to move the other year back up. It's like a step in movement. So there's no change until you get to the very end of the line, right? So that makes sense.
But there's no other adjustments in future fiscal years like the ones you just talked about for 24, 25?
Correct, at least at this point, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the PTAT. This is what I presented back in February, so I thought I'd just keep it here for reference. That is what happened in February, nothing planned for 2024, because the day that was early February, the IRS didn't open, there's no return coming in, right? So since that day, this is what we have. So we have that for tax year 23 and prior, it's 1.4 billion out of 1.43. So pretty much all of it is what they're claiming. There's no question about it. And caveat is the data is very fluid because when the PTAT come in, they have to make an election, they have to make a payment. It's all kind of data back and forth. So some of this number might change, but not significantly.
Okay, could I just ask one more question? If the federal tax law is changed, unwinding PETA, in other words,
If they get
basically
rid of it.
eliminates it, the need for it.
Yeah.
What effect would that have on future fiscal years?
What that will have on, if PTAT go away, right? If PTAT go away, you will see final payment pick up, estimate payment for individual going back up to roughly 400 million, and refund going down. And also corporate income tax go down.
Would they net out? or-
They will net out.
They will net out.
Yeah. The PTAT doesn't change tax liability. It just shifts in between the tax total rate, which is make it very difficult to back them off. But you look tax year 24 here, we have 640 million, about 500 million of that already get claimed, so we have about 160 million left to be claimed. which maybe May and June, maybe October, but over the next 5 months, that's when we likely to see those coming out. And then tax year 25 start out with about 16 million so far. That's half a year, but a lot of that will pick up in October. So I think the build-in of 350 million should make more close sense to to an annual basis from now on. So that's the difference. That's what makes the forecast for this fiscal year a lot worse than what we did in February. Good on that. So overall, with all that, here is the revised forecast for 24-25. Sales tax about 11 to 16 million down, revised downward from the board number. Individual income tax, based on the booklet I give out, it's about 120 million. But again, today I would suggest that number to be 50 million less, which is 2270, 80, something like that. And then corporate, similar story. We would revise that down by 50 million. So total, you will see instead of like 131, it's going to be around 200 million. Here's 25, 26. Compared to the board number, that's the board number. This is our new forecast. Sales use tax, the average of two should leave that number alone. Individual about 130 million down compared to the board. Corporate up 35 and 79. Miscellaneous pretty much stay flat. 26, 27, a similar story. Forecast on about 42 million down on S&P, 75 down for sales and use tax. Individual about 100 million. Corporate is up by 66 and 133. Both services have a different corporate profit function. Then miscellaneous pretty much flat. So we're looking at 107 million for S&P, 40 for Moody. And this next few slides will just circle through the individual components so you can see the growth rate. So I won't spend too much time on it. Roughly 1% this fiscal year, and then roughly 4.5 and 1.5. But all this information is in the booklet, so I will skip all that through. So here's the last slide for net revenue forecast. About 6.3 billion for this fiscal year. That's before adjustment. So with the adjustment, it's going to be 6.2. And then next year, 6.87. And then the year after that, 26, 27, 6.9 billion for the FY 26, 27. And this is in attempt to answer Steve's question from the last meeting. So we found some data and then analysis on household income level. So here's the income level for each of this. Reverse, I believe Steve has something to the extent that the sales tax, how it's broken out by income group. So here's the income, household income group. You look here, that's the estimated contribution to sales tax revenue. So if you look at from 50,000 household up into about 200,000 cut off this line, that's roughly about 57% of the household is in that four group. And they account for about 64% of the sales tax revenue, right? And the above 200,000 account for about 20% of the income based on the salary. And that's its point.
So since you went first, Wafu, you're going to get the question on maybe Keisha will want to weigh in now, or maybe you need to wait after LFOs. But obviously the thing that immediately catches your eye when you look at this is the significant disparity in corporate income in the out years between LFO and NDR. So can you give us some background as to what assumptions differed between the two?
What we did is, so what we did, I our number. But we did the baseline forecast without PTED, right? So that forecast is baseline, right? And then we adjust for the PTED amount. The PTED, based on our assumption that we put in the book, is 350 million, right? And then we assume about 70% of that is increase in corporate income tax. So 70% of 350 is roughly 250 million, 240. And then we add that right on top of that baseline forecast. That's how we got to our number.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get into that when I get into our presentation, but I do think relative to how our office did the model, it's not adequately taking into account the PTEP payments that are being accounted for under corporate income tax payments. And we have made an adjustment for it, but it's still not adequately showing that shift. So I'm going to talk about an adjustment relative to our forecast. Unfortunately, this will be for all 3 fiscal years because of that that concern that I have about how our model is accounting for that.
So I guess my follow-up question to that is, and it may be more after you present yours, is my first thought when I looked at it, just because of that change in corporate, was PTET. I don't see it as a proportional offset in individual income in the same way we saw when we saw the first PTET shift, where there's a direct shift from corporate to individual. As I look at the out years, you can see there is a shift, but it doesn't seem to be the same dollar for dollar shift. So do we have an idea as to why that is, or are there other assumptions that are not being accounted for or accounted for differently in the models?
I don't think so. I guess that's the best way to answer that is I don't think that there are other adjustments that we are accounting for in a significantly different way. I mean, you may be right that it's not a dollar for dollar offset. I mean, that's how I'm going to present it to the board. But as we go through it, you'll probably see that even with that shift to corporate, then our individual income tax estimates are still well below what the Department of Revenues are. And I don't have a great explanation for that at this point, especially in fiscal year 27, it diverges quite a bit. So, I mean, that's possible, but it's not a dollar for dollar offset, and that's what's causing some of the issue. I feel like it's been challenging for all of us to model this correctly, so.
So just to add to this, I mean, it's the 3rd meeting in a row where we've got the material ahead of time, and then we come to the meeting and it's, well, we didn't adequately handle PTET. And I don't speak for everyone on the board, but I think we do spend quite a bit of time going through this and trying to come up with where we're going to be on numbers. And then when you show up and it's like, well, yeah, we did. I know we're supposed to get 2 independent forecasts. Is there a way for you all to come together and say, get a better understanding of how you're handling PTET as opposed to us having this $300 million shift when you walk into a meeting?
There probably is. I mean, I'm not gonna say like I don't.
Well, I do think it's
I
actually
acknowledge
I
that's
do think
happening.
it's actually impacting the forecast. And some of these adjustments we have to go back and make, it creates a narrative for the economic climate change, but it's really just the fact that we're not necessarily getting.
Yeah, I guess I would say in response to that, it's compounded this time because it is actually not just the PTET that is causing the issue, because we both of our offices did this before we had the data from April. That obviously has made a difference relative to this fiscal year. So I think that even if I could say our model was adequately accounting for PTET, we would still have that adjustment.
No, I
For this
understand things
fiscal
like that
year
are
as
gonna happen.
well.
But this is just something that seems to not be, it gets acknowledged each meeting, but we're not
Yeah,
actually fixing it. For the
I
meeting.
understand
And
that.
like, I get what's gonna happen with the April tax receipts. They're gonna come in different, like,
Yeah,
just the time
yeah.
thing. But this is
Yeah.
one we know we've got
I know.
an issue with.
So, I mean, I understand, and I understand that that's frustrating for the board. And like I said, we have made an adjustment relative to our forecast. We did do that between February and April relative to expected P-type credits being claimed. But it's still not adequately distributing it correctly between individual income tax and corporate income tax. And so, I mean, obviously going forward, this is perhaps a more complicated or more, we need to do a more comprehensive type of look at how we're evaluating that. But I do understand that it is frustrating. I don't have a lot else to say in that regard.
I like how Wafu rolled his chair back to just make sure that he physically moved out of the line of fire.
Yeah.
If you're watching
Yes.
on verbals here.
Yeah.
Well, if I
Okay.
can just add to that, my own observation, going back to the change Wafu mentioned to us, $50 million overstated in corporate for the current fiscal year and $50 million in individual. I don't know how recent you discovered this, but you send the board packet out. I know it takes time to prepare it, things like that. Is it possible that you could send out an email to us before the meeting, even the day before, if there's any material change? If it's insignificant, it's probably not necessary, but if it's material, send an email out as close to the meeting as possible as to what the changes are and narrative as to why. That would be helpful.
Yeah, and I acknowledge that I probably should have done that too, and I was hoping to prepare more. It's in my presentation, but I don't have anything to specifically hand out to you, and I know that would be helpful to email or send to you before the meeting. Also, I guess I will say for me personally, these last 2 weeks have been a little bit of a time crunch, but so some of this, we didn't really discuss in depth internally in our office until quite recently. So, but we will work to alleviate some of that confusion and issues with our model in the future. So,
To address your question, at least for me, I came to the conclusion that we need to take $100 million off yesterday.
Yes.
That's when I called them. And
But for those of us that are able to check our emails on a regular basis, just even if you send it out in the afternoon, it gives at least some of us an opportunity to reflect on the change and kind of relook at the packet and the assumptions we were bringing with us to the meeting.
And on the same, if you could redo this sheet, even
Yeah.
as you come in with any last minute changes, that would be helpful as well.
yes, and I understand that would have been very helpful. And I will say that this April meeting timing is like a little bit of a challenge, but I do agree that I think that would be helpful for you. I can send it to you tomorrow. Okay, so I'll just start this. Okay, obviously this is the same as what Wafu presented through March. It was 12.7 million below forecast. With 4 processing days left in April, there is about $95 million remaining in the projection for April. As Wafu said, a lot of that is withholding for income tax. We do have, so far this month, sales tax is 8.4 million below forecast. Individual income tax is 187.9 million below forecast. Corporate income tax is 53.3 million below forecast. And miscellaneous tax is 3.1 million below forecast. So obviously he put together a projection based on what would happen those remaining 4 days. But that adds about 17 million below forecast relative to what we had through April 23rd, which is the most current data that I just show here. By category, this is just for March. If you add them together, our sales and use tax is about 21 million below forecast. Individual income is about 191 million below. Corporate is 42 million below, and miscellaneous is about 10 million below. Again, that just includes the data through April 23rd. Relative to the macroeconomic variables that are driving the forecast, in pretty much every category, the assumptions have the growth rates are reduced relative to the baseline forecast in February. I don't want to, spend too much time going through this, going through each one. While we did that a little bit, I was looking to see if there was other confirmation relative to some of these, some of the reasons behind these variables shifting in the way that they did. And there happened to be a new beige book released on April 23rd that I looked through, and it seemed like a lot of the commentary related to the different sectors mirrored the assumptions relative to the changes in the S&P baseline and the Moody's forecast too. So again, I don't want to belabor the point. So our forecast for fiscal year 24-25, this is what was sent out to the board last week. It shows a reduction over the current forecast of about 160 million for the fiscal year. We do have sales tax and miscellaneous tax, both are relatively close, very close actually to the February forecast. We do have a reduction in individual income tax of about 50 million and 100 million reduction in corporate income tax. In determining how to look through our data and compare it to what was actually happening in April, I noticed a little bit of an anomaly as well in relation to our estimate for final payments and estimated payments in individual income tax. So whereas WAFU said they had an issue relative to their estimate of refunds, we have a very similar but slightly different problem in that our estimated payments and final payments are estimated to be, for this fiscal year, over $1 billion, about $1.1 billion. And it through March, they were only about 525 million, and even adding in April, it's clearly that particular area of our gross income tax is overestimated at this point. And I think a good portion of that is due to the impact of PTEP payments, lowering final payments and estimated payments. So if you take into account that our estimated payments and final payments are overestimated by about $250 billion. Our original forecast that we did already showed a reduction in individual income tax of about 50 million, but it does appear that that should be reduced, adjusted down to account for that difference in the estimated and final payments of about $200 million. Now, to offset some of that, I think that part of the reason that ours are overestimated is because we are not adequately accounting for the PTEP payments that are being recorded as corporate income tax receipts. And so relative to this adjustment that I've shown up here, I offset 100 million of that estimation into the corporate category. So it is as you can see by the bottom, with this adjustment, to take into account our overestimated estimated and final payments in individual income tax and add half of that back to corporate income tax receipts, you can see that really the reduction comes in the individual income tax category, but it does result in a lower forecast by an extra 100 million than what we sent out also. Now, this is my best estimation relative to what we have under accounted for in terms of switching between individual and corporate for this fiscal year. Are there questions on that before I go forward?
You just leave this slide up
Uh-huh.
for a moment or several moments. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you can see with the adjustment, it brings our individual income tax, this one, individual income tax, this is with the adjustment, to account for reducing our estimate for final payments and estimated payments. So that would come down to about 2.2 billion.
Yeah.
And it would increase corporate by 100
Huh.
relative to what our original forecast was.
Right.
So
Could we do this when you wrap up? Could we just maybe go through line by line and with both of your forecasts and plug in what are the updated numbers?
yes.
So I don't mean to interrupt you now, but I'm just thinking this sheet that you have, if we could just go through and make sure that we get the right numbers in so
Yeah.
that what was it, what should it be? Because it's the individual income, the corporate income, sales and miscellaneous, we won't have to mess
Yeah,
with those.
unchanged.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll wait till you're done. but that
For
might
each of
be-
the affected fiscal years, not just the current, which is what that slide is.
yes, this slide is just the current fiscal year. But this issue relative to, I mean, I went through the data relative to the next two fiscal years as well, fiscal year 26 and 27. Several of you have already noticed and commented to me about how our corporate income tax receipts are perhaps underrepresented. And in large part, that is because we still have, I believe, we talked about this quite a bit in our office this week, but I think we have continued to overestimate estimated payments and final payments in individual income tax, which should be accounted for in corporate income tax relative to these particular PTEP payments. So that is, I think, still an ongoing issue with our model that I will apologize that we have not completely ironed out all of the adjustments that we perhaps need to be making relative to these PTEP payments. But for this fiscal year, I do, in looking at the data, I feel pretty confident that we have overestimated those payments in by about $250 million. And I think some of that is reflected in the corporate income tax receipts, which is why it's not just a reduction, it is an offset relative to corporate income tax.
So Keisha, can you, at the risk of asking a question you've already answered, in the third group of numbers there,
Mhm.
the net individual income tax is 51,808, I think.
Yes.
And the net corporate income tax is 101,680.
Yeah.
Can you help me with where the origin of those two numbers is? Is it those PTEP things or?
Yeah, so that's when we ran the forecast model, our forecast model that we presented, that's in the report, are these numbers up here.
Right.
And this number here, the 2.4 billion in individual income tax and 1.03 billion of corporate income tax, are these amounts below the current forecast. But I think our model is not adequately showing what the change to individual income tax should be because of the PTEP payments.
So
And
this-
also the April data. So this is a combination of the fact that April has been underperforming relative to individual income tax, as well as a shift to PTEP payments.
So are you telling us that this slide is wrong? Are you making a verbal adjustment to this slide now, or?
No, I'm saying these are the adjusted numbers right here, which would result in a change to the current forecast of these amounts.
And there's,
So just,
go ahead.
So disregard the third bracket there, the change from current forecast.
Yeah, that is related to the forecast that we did prior, like at the beginning of the month,
Okay,
what was in the book. This is the adjusted one at the bottom.
so that's the number that you're telling us now.
Yes.
And that's where I'm not understanding, is that third bunch of numbers, it's just saying, don't pay attention to that, pay attention to the fourth bunch.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have put them on here, but I wanted to.
Okay, well, that's because I don't understand where the 51 million or the 101 million. comes
Yeah,
from.
that's
I
just the
don't understand
change
what's
from the current forecast, but I mean, honestly, I feel like I don't feel like those are adequately representing what is happening right now. That is what our model came up with at the beginning of the month, but obviously we've had our April data that has changed
Right.
those assumptions. It is quite clear now in looking through it this week that our estimated payments and final payments are well overestimated with the April data that's come in. But I think that it is not entirely represented in our corporate income tax relative to the extra payments that have been made in there, which has caused lower estimated payments on the individual side. So that's why I made an adjustment on the corporate income tax side, is to offset some of the problem in our estimation is that April has underperformed, and some of the problem is that it actually should be accounted for in corporate income tax receipts. So unlike Waffles, on our end, it's two adjustments.
If we were to accept the fourth group of numbers, LFO, for this fiscal year, that's a really big number.
It is.
I mean, it's a gigantic.
It is.
Uh,
It's about, so I think the Department of Revenue's numbers as adjusted would be about 230 million reduction, and ours is about 260 million.
it's close.
And to
So
Chad,
they're actually not that, it is big, but it's not that different from,
and to Chad's comment or question, I think we will have to have the exact line by line of both of those somehow, because I'm just having trouble tracking that, because
Yeah.
even though you put that at the bottom, those numbers there, I still don't see what the estimate is for the net receipts for net individual or corporate. I don't see that.
yeah, it's these numbers right here.
Well, okay, then that's a $200 million difference in individual, not 251,808,000.
Well, so this is the new estimate with the adjustment. Is this what, yeah, there we go. This is the change, this is not the amount of the adjustment, it's the change from the current forecast. The February
The
forecast.
200 plus the 51.
So if you look at the 2496829 number.
Yes.
That is replacing what was in the packet of materials that was previously 2398192.
Yes. It's 2198192. It's the second line, the individual, 2198192. It replaces 2398192. So you can see what I did is I reduced individual income tax by 200 million and added 100 million back to corporate income tax. So our net individual number went down by 200 million and our net corporate number went up by 100 million. So that's what's different here versus the top ones.
Okay, so now the hard question is, did you do that based on a model or a feeling, or how did you make that?
I did it outside of the model after the fact, yeah. Because when I looked at what our model produced and then I looked at the April data, I just don't think it's reasonable to assume that we're gonna come up with $1.1 billion of final and estimated payments when we're only at like 800 million right now. So, I mean, I think there is a clear issue relative to what we've estimated there. I will say our refunds they were originally estimated higher than Department of Revenues, and those seem to be fairly close.
I don't mean to be taking this on too hard, but did you use mathematics to come to that decision, or was it like this is? I get that. Was there a basis for that?
Yeah. So I used mathematics. Yeah, I mean, the difference, the overestimation that we have in final and estimated payments is $250 million. But our model was already showing that we were, a $50 million reduction in individual income tax. So I added the difference.
I don't want to sound like an algebra teacher, but I almost want to say, show your work.
Show my work.
Yeah, but too late for that, but.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, to set up, so it's not Senator Keene anymore. To Mr. Keene's point earlier, I mean, what I did is I thought that there is an offset relative to what should be added to corporate income tax. Do I have a great, I feel like that number is less certain relative to what I've added back as an offset. I'm a little bit less confident in that offset number than I am in the reduction in individual income tax. I'm fairly confident about that. So take that for what you will.
What is the last day that you use to get actual numbers? For
The 23rd of April.
23rd. Okay. We're not meeting on the last day of April. So if we were, you would have more data.
Yeah.
In order to try to determine if the what adjustments should be. And I know there are a lot of people in the unicameral and the executive branch that are waiting for these forecast numbers right now. But are the board doing a disservice by having this meeting on the 25th versus the last day of the month for purposes of having an accurate forecast?
Take that.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Part of it is because the last few days of the month, the biggest thing in April is final payment. When people file their taxes, they're paying in. Because for the last few days, refund have significantly decreased. Final payment basically stopped coming in. We had like $500,000, $1 million a day. So all the check that came in on the 15th, that when you put it on the mail, we should have already opened it that account. All that data already in. So the last few days now is basically withholding for this quarter is the 1/30th. So we're missing a couple of days on withholding, but we can pull that from last year. So we know what those look like. One major part which I did call make sure yesterday was on the miscellaneous where the insurance premium tax we projected 50 million, we got 17 million. So I was questioning where we will get the rest coming in, which they will. So we got 39 million on that, so it's all accounted for. I think the number for April is pretty solid, even if you do it now or that 30th, because all the tax data are pretty much by now that significantly fluctuate year over year should be in right now, which is the final payment.
Maybe at our next meeting, you can do a brief analysis as to what the April actual was versus what you're projecting right now. To just confirm what you're saying is that if we had this meeting on the end of April instead of today, you're saying that based on historical results, there really isn't, you're not going to gain that much by delaying it a few days, the meeting. And it'd be helpful for you to kind of demonstrate that in this case. Because assuming we're available, I don't think we have a problem meeting later in the month.
Yeah, okay.
But at some point, doesn't that get difficult for your legislative count?
Yeah.
I mean, you're running out of days at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's some, but, I mean,
That's a trade-off.
it's a trade-off.
And you're still gonna get 2 more months on top of the last 3 days. So you're not,
Right.
there's still a lot of.
If I promise to only ask one more question about this slide, can I ask one more question? So thinking about the most current information from the LFO for today,
Yeah.
the only numbers I care about on that slide are the second group and the fourth group.
Yes.
I don't care about the first and the
Yeah, I
third
put
because they're
them
not.
on there to show what it was, but yes.
But I mean, the
And-
focus is the bottom and
Yeah.
the difference there, especially in the individual income tax.
Yes. And relative to that, I mean, so I made this adjustment, like I said, out of the model after the fact. If the board doesn't agree with, I mean, I'm trying to account for what our model is not accounting for. Obviously, it didn't account for what was happening in April, and I think it's not adequately accounting for the PTEP payments. And I mean, you're welcome to disagree with me relative to that, but that was my basis for making the adjustment for this particular fiscal year.
So you changed the model going forward? based
I
upon
think
where
we
you
have
are?
to, yeah. I think that we, because obviously I don't think it's helpful to just make manual adjustments after the fact every time, but I do think, you know, we have made an adjustment. I think it's just insufficient to what has actually happened. And part of that is because that the PTEP payments have been more this fiscal year than what we originally estimated too. And so I think our original manual adjustment was not reflecting the total of what was happening. So going forward, I think we need to make more significant adjustments relative to the distribution on these two tax categories.
To your point, though, I support you looking and using your experience and knowledge. I mean, you are both professionals who deal with this every day. And if it was simply a matter of plug the assumptions into the model and spit out a number, and that's what we did, there's no need for us. We would just literally go with the average of the four models, and that would be your forecast. But we're here using our expertise to interpret the model. And I guess I appreciate you using your knowledge and expertise when something comes out of the model that you say, this doesn't fit with the reality that I'm observing based on my expertise and years of experience. I'm going to make an adjustment. That's what we expect you to do. So I appreciate that you looked at the information and the data and said, this is what I did, and you're transparent with us about what you've done. So I appreciate that, and I think that's how this process is supposed to work.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just trying to explain, this is what I thought was more reasonable. So that was the adjustment that I made. Okay, so going forward to the next fiscal year. So our fiscal year 26 forecast, this is the forecast that we sent the board in the report. Our forecast generally is lower, a little bit lower than the Department of Revenue's forecast. It's about 170 million below the current forecast, and I think theirs was about 90 or 80, something like that. But we do still have, the biggest difference here is quite a bit lower number in corporate income tax receipts, which I think is a reflection of the same issue that I was just describing relative to those PTEP payments. So I'm sorry to do this to you for another fiscal year, but I just swapped them. In this case, after I had a fairly in-depth conversation with the revenue forecaster in my office, we had a conversation about how much of the PTEP relative to corporate income tax was being accounted for in our model, how much was not, of what was estimated to be for fiscal year 26. And so I used an assumption that $200 million is overrepresented in individual income tax and underrepresented in corporate income tax. So I just made a $200 million adjustment relative to individual and corporate. That brings our individual estimates to right around $3 billion for fiscal year 26, and our corporate income tax estimates up to, it's an average of about $840 million. And if we look at the assumption relative to the ongoing amount of PTEP payments being around $350 million, so far what we've seen is about 70% of that being included in corporate income tax receipts and 30% in individual income tax receipts. Like I said earlier, that would be about $245 million. $245 million is 70% of the total estimated amount. Now, I said already, we have made some manual adjustment relative to the PTEP payments, which is why I did not do exactly $245 million adjustment here. Because I wanted to account for the fact that we did have some of that already included in our model. So I used 200 million. Again, you may agree with that or disagree with that, but I'm trying to make this more adequately show the distribution between those two taxes. It doesn't change the total net change to net receipts. It's a distributional issue only for this fiscal year 26 and the same for fiscal year 27. Do you have any questions about this one before I move on to the next one? Okay, fiscal year 27, this was our original forecast. It was about 200 average, but about 275 million below forecast. Our fiscal year 27 forecast in general is quite a bit lower than Department of Revenue's forecast, about 200 million lower than their forecast. This distributional issue between corporate and individual income tax does not make any difference relative to the total net receipts being lower than the Department of Revenue's. And I have been trying to come up with a really great explanation as to why our model is showing a number $200 million lower than Department of Revenue's number, and I don't have a great answer for you. Obviously, the forecast variables were put into the model, and this is what came out. So it's just representing it a little bit differently, but I don't have a great explanation to show why the second year is a bigger difference in that regard.
On a going forward basis, that explanation, I mean, I appreciate you guys frankly, I think it's a strength of the system that you guys are running two different models. Just there has to be something in there in those models that are telling, and it's helpful to the committee so we can evaluate why.
Yeah.
Which one of you is right, or maybe you're both right, or maybe we're wrong. Yeah, but whatever.
We're both wrong. Yeah.
Well, it's almost always right, because it's too hard. But if we get you guys to talk to each other and tell us what the difference is between them, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and usually it's I mean, I will say, I try to always address that at the meeting. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, we have relatively different assumption for interest rates or timing of certain things, but I just don't have a great explanation this time. And unfortunately, it's kind of a big difference, and I understand how frustrating that is too. So again, okay. So I did the same thing for fiscal year 27 that I did for fiscal year 26 relative to the distribution. This is the same. It keeps our net individual income tax with the adjustment. It'd be just right below 3 billion, just a shade below, and then it increases the corporate tax receipts under S&P's 770 million and 831 for Moody's. So that is the adjustment there. Any other questions?
Could you hold on that slide for just
Sure.
a second, please?
So when I was talking to Wafu before the meeting started, he felt pretty comfortable with his projections on corporate. Is that a fair statement?
I
For
don't remember
the
getting
two
it right now.
outlying years.
Indirectly,
Yeah.
Because as was pointed out, ultimately we've got to make a decision as to which of the two forecasts we have a stronger feeling about, as it relates to corporate in this case.
In this case, so with the adjustment, this is the change from the current forecast down here. So you can see like the biggest change is relative to individual income tax. The corporate number, if we adjust that relative to those PTET payments that I think are being underrepresented, it's a little bit lower in S&P, but a little bit higher in Moody's. So there's not that big of a change relative to the current board forecast for corporate income tax. It does shift the difference then just basically into the individual income tax category. And so evaluating that in comparison with the Department of Revenues, it's just an evaluation, I suppose, of how the board would like to address the individual income tax for that particular year. But I think that this adjustment brings the amount relative to the types of tax closer in line to what the Department of Revenue's model is doing and closer in line to what we have seen this year as well. So it may not look like it, but I'm trying to be helpful.
Well, as Chad said earlier, when we get to the point of the board doing the forecast, the two of you will need to give us some revisions to the
Yeah.
forecast sheet so that we can use this accurately. Right now, it's not accurate, based upon the changes that we've been talking about.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to go over is, this has been asked about before, federal funds. There's not that much change from February relative to federal funds. There was about $19 billion of COVID money. There's about, There's about 724 million. Oh, I see, I forgot to update a number, I'm sorry. It's about 724.5 million that is not expended right now. 383 million of that is the state coronavirus fiscal recovery funds. 78 million is capital projects fund money, which is at the state level as well. The estimate relative to the local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds stays the same because we did not find updated reporting between the February meeting and this meeting relative to the amount of local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds that have been expended during that time period. So that stays the same, but it's a relatively modest reduction of total unexpended funds from the February meeting. So just to give you a quick update on that.
What's in the rainy day fund?
So the current balance in our general fund is about 750 million, I believe, as of April 23rd. And that is lower than the amount in February. In February was about 1.2 billion cash on hand in the general fund. So we have seen a reduction of cash in that particular fund. And then in the rainy day fund, the balance is, I believe, 900 and I wrote this down on a previous slide and I didn't say it. I believe it's like 900 and, I don't want to tell you the wrong number. 910 million right now. So, and there are a handful of legislative transfers through the end of the year, but the ending year balance is supposed to be about 880 million. So modest amount.
You said we went from 1.25 billion to 750 million.
In the general fund as a cash balance.
Is that normal?
There were, I will say, I think part of the reason for that, part of what contributed to that was there were some large transfers out of the general fund in March. So that reduces the cash balance. Those are annual legislative transfers. So relative to that, yes, I would say that is normal. Yeah.
Of the 724.5 million that remains unexpended,
Yes.
has there been any attempt by the federal government to claw back any of it?
No, I don't believe so. At this point, the coronavirus fiscal recovery funds have all had to be obligated. The obligation deadline was December 31st. And relative to the state coronavirus fiscal recovery funds, the state, I think the agencies that were appropriated those funds were working very hard to obligate everything by that deadline. I have not seen a clawback of these funds on the list of potential federal fund changes as of late. So I feel like that's a less of a possibility than some other positive federal money. For instance, I talked about at the February meeting, the Inflation Reduction Act funds, the state of Nebraska had been awarded close to $500 million or so under Inflation Reduction Act programs, and those have been listed as potentially, reduced allocations of federal funds for those programs. So, but I haven't seen anything specific to these state and local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds.
Nationally, not just.
Right.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. I'm gonna stop now.
Didn't want to cut you off, did you?
I just have one technical question. The $100 million that the board raised for this fiscal year, raised the forecast for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
That's targeted for the cash reserve.
Under state law, there is certification for the current fiscal year of the forecast, and that is only changed in certain circumstances. And so when we recertify the forecast, that happens because of certain things. But if there is then an estimate over the certified forecast under current law, that is directed to the cash reserve fund. That only applies to the current fiscal year.
So if the board were to lower the forecast for this fiscal year, anything 100 million or less is only impacting the cash reserve, not the bottom line for the budget. Is that accurate?
Yes. And we also, I will say one of the circumstances where we recertify the forecast is if the board lowers the forecast. So we would have a new certified forecast relative to a decision of the board if it were lower than what the February forecast was.
Which forecast do we use to certify?
So under the law, we start in July. We always have to certify the forecast in July for the current fiscal year, and that's based on the most recent board forecast, which last year, or for this current year, it was the February forecast of last year, and then adjusted for any legislation. So that was our original certified forecast for this fiscal year. We did also recertify the forecast following a special session related to revenue adjustments that were made during the session. And then we recertified the forecast again in October because that was a reduction of the forecast from the August certification. And so right now the certified forecast is the October forecast, but the certification requirements relate to a lowering of the most recent forecast. So if this forecast is lower than the February forecast, the law requires us to recertify.
But the one that we're estimating for 25, 26 becomes a certified forecast.
In July, it won't be certified until July. Because we only certify the fiscal year that we are currently in.
When you say lower than the current forecast, you mean the total or any component in terms of
I mean
change?
the total.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
If you're done, would it make sense maybe for this to be a good time to go through and update? Because I think I followed you.
Update the chart.
Yeah, so if you look at legislative fiscal, and I'm going to leave sales and use and miscellaneous receipts alone because those didn't change for either of you.
I can update these really quick if you just give me a minute.
Oh, yeah.
If you need some time to update, we can talk about our communities. in
Yes,
the
if you'd like
process.
to do
Would
that
be
while I'm
helpful?
updating this, that would be.
Is that okay?
No.
All right. While the information is being updated, let's talk about our communities. I was going to start with Steve, but Would you like to talk about your community, Steve?
What?
We're talking about our communities
Oh,
while
sorry.
they're updating the sheets.
Sorry. I've been pretty confused here for a while, so. The Omaha community really, in my opinion, hasn't changed much, nor has the Fremont community changed much since February. So we were rocking and rolling along, and we still are. It's way too soon for us to know what the impact of any of the chaos that has happened at the federal level has been. And so I'm kind of deferring until we know more on that particular issue. But right now, Omaha seems to be doing as well as it ever has, in my humble opinion.
Just pretty much going to repeat Steve here at this point. So, no, I'll just say I do have concerns with making any substantial changes to the out years, just based on the timing of when this was all pulled and with what's happening with the tariffs. I mean, like this Wafu noted in his material, they've already gone down from where it was the day he pulled the forecast and what S&P was using for a number. And I think from everything we're hearing, we should know by the fall. Senator Ricketts was at the Lincoln Chamber the other day talking about by the fall or end of the year. So I do think by October, we're going to have a much better idea of what this tariff situation looks like, which appears to be one of the biggest impacts on what these out years are coming up with in the models.
John?
Again, not a lot of significant change. I think chaos is the word of the day in terms of trying to anticipate for businesses. Planting is happening, calves are being born, the season continues and the cycle continues. But as far as certainty on investments and things like that, I think with the daily unpredictability in so many factors regarding policy, it's difficult for a business or consumers to really make any firm long-term plans. So nothing significantly changed from February. Just keep your head on a swivel and see what the next day's news cycle is going to bring, and don't open any of your accounts. And if you do, be sitting down.
Okay. A lot of great things happening in Kearney, and of course, a lot of them we've talked about before. A couple recent things. We just opened a new sportsplex in Kearney, and they had two events there just this last month. They had 160 volleyball teams, and they've got another 150 that played there. And they're starting to book up now or they're booked out as far as 2029, which is good. We got a new Chamber of Commerce building, which has been exciting. And I learned something from the Chamber today, and they talked about credit card fees are up 70% over the pandemic years, and there's some major push to get them reduced, and the number is just outstanding.
Just interchange fees?
And the collections, MasterCard, and all of those, and they've got obviously a monopoly, and of course the National Chamber of Commerce, I guess, is pushing for something, for some change out there. Still have a shortage with the workforce and with childcare, and got a community effort that's working on those. For the people in the farm and ranch community, they're praying for rain. It's awful dry out in our area. There's only a couple places that have had any moisture. Things are greening up, but they'll start turning brown if we don't get some moisture out there. So,
Thank you.
All right, we might just start where Tom ended. Need some moisture out in western Nebraska. That's nothing new. But we did have a number of some producers that were either unable to continue or did not want to continue. But it's good to see that when they did have sales or liquidations, prices were holding on equipment and real estate. So that's a good thing. A lot of uncertainty about tariffs, but, some certainty in that they're pretty much not ever good for ag. And so there's definitely been some conversation about that. And we've seen some commercial projects where the bidding, at least to us, would indicate that people were bidding like there were going to be tariffs. And so the costs were in a place where the owner decided to delay those types of things. Those same owners have said, well, this isn't delaying forever. It's just till we see things settle out. But how long does that take? One thing that I think I mentioned last time that, I would say now is not just a blip, is we have seen an uptick in our consumer 1 to 4 family past due loans that appears to be a bit sustained, which causes pending foreclosures to go up. When we look in the public notices, we see foreclosures. So that would be a bit of a concern. So if I was cautiously optimistic last time, I'm less optimistic and more cautious now. But it's early in the year. I think we've got at least things set as far as ag producers. So got to see how the year plays out.
Thanks, Zach. I'll add a few things to what Tom said about Kearney, if I may. First, it really hasn't been much change the past couple of months since our last meeting. Housing is still a problem, which I'll address in a second. Buffalo County retail sales in February were up 2.4% over the same time last year. Lodging taxes, January, February this year showed a 7% increase over the same period last year. This may be the calm before the storm, depending on what happens with tariffs. That's why there's so much uncertainty out there. In the city of Kearney, the employments, number of people boarding the new SkyWest United Airlines more than doubled in January through March this year compared to last year. So that's been a real big success. The unemployment rate, talking about labor in Kearney, was 2% in March, which was the lowest percent of all the 15 communities surveyed by the Nebraska Department of Labor. It was 2% in March of 2024 as well. So really not much change between that time frame. One item which I don't really follow Grand Island too much, but in looking at the Department of Labor analysis, Grand Island's unemployment rate went from 3.8% in February to 4.4% in March. And I'm not quite certain, maybe Tom, why that may have happened. But of all the communities surveyed by the Department of Labor, that's the only one that's increased year to year also as well. So you might want to just kind of keep our eyes on that, see what's happening. In terms of housing, building permits are still low, 29 in January, February of this year versus 30 a year ago. Number of homes that were sold in the first quarter of this year, single family condos, townhomes were only in Kearney, in Buffalo County, only 49 versus 71 the previous year. So there really aren't that many homes that are selling. And part of that is because there are so few homes that are on the market. When I was here back in February, I mentioned in the roundtable discussion that we had 32 such homes on the market. And that was in the middle of the winter. As of yesterday, last night, we had 25. And you'd think that you'd have a lot more in the spring buying season. This is really a prime time to put a house on the market. What's happening on the very few homes that we do have on the market, they sell like the next day. I had one on my street sell within 24 hours, and they got more than their asking price. If you take a look at the volume of homes that are selling in Kearney in the first quarter, we've got about 1.5 months of inventory on hand right now of single family condos and townhomes. In a normal market, it's 4 to 6 months. So, and prices continue to go up as a result of the shortage of homes on the market. Now, if you own a home and you're planning on selling, having the prices go up may be fine, but if you're not, you're going to end up paying higher real estate taxes as the homes are reassessed, which is not a good trade. So everything seems to be working in the Kearney area right now, with the exception of housing.
Yep, I would echo what Steve said. In Omaha, things going basically the same as reported last time, with maybe a little more sense of uncertainty at the federal level. Other than that, nothing new to report.
John?
Rich?
Yes.
I could almost say the same thing as Steve, Matt, and everybody from the construction industry. I've called a bunch of the contractors and they say it's seen some interesting times. And so I think that's the confusion. I can't say the sky's falling because it's not. It's the industry's good. But taxes, tariff, and uncertainty is certainly ruling the day right now. The more you can talk about a rumor, the easier it is. Some national notes to make everyone aware of that really isn't new to anybody. Stuff you know is Wall Street reports that U.S. depends on Mexico and Canada for about 25% of the building materials, which kind of surprised me. China for a lot of electronics, huge amount of electronics. Big developers, not so much in our Midwest, but Southeast, are saying the contractors are already hiking their cost up 20%. Bureau of Labor stats say construction industry had 236,000 open unfilled positions at the end of January, and that's a 42% drop for the same month in 2024. So the numbers are coming down, but we still have open unfilled jobs that we can't fill. Alliance of Home Builders states that the rising prices could, underline could, about 3 times, add $9,200 per home. In Nebraska, the contractors I talked to are reporting bigger jobs, still on track. Right now, everything looks good. Going to be a very promising year. Medium jobs, maybe we'll hold for a month or two. Maybe we'll kind of see what goes on later in the fall. Prices for normal stuff, for electrical, pipe, wire, connectors, day-to-day stuff is at appropriate levels, not including aluminum. The issue is the bigger common commodities, lighting, switchgear, electronics, and there's some concern because most of those parts are made overseas. The lead time for the bigger commodities, I've talked before about transformers, switchgear, panel boards, generators especially, that was way out there, but that lead time has shrunk, which kind of tells me that maybe not needed as much, or maybe they're pulling back a little bit. In the residential world, home sales are certainly being affected. Costs, like they mentioned, have started to increase. Contractor tells me the aluminum wire they have been using has really jumped, and he's worried about that. He's also not setting as many temporary poles as he used to, and that's an indicator of home building. The largest home builder in the nation restated its revenue for the coming year from 36 to 37 billion to 33 to 34.8 billion. Quite a drop. Also reported nationwide builders have more completed but unsold homes on their lots since 2009. Guy I talked to with the home builder says eastern Nebraska, that's certainly slowing down, but they're concerned, but they're not panicking. They're not getting excited. As Matt said, they're kind of waiting to see what's the summer going to bring. What are we going to do into fall? Local architect told me, and he's a local guy that does national work, says that states their work is still good. They're just trying to get some major projects started and get them out the door, but customers are just dragging their feet a little bit, but they've got a good book of business and they're looking good. So all this being said, right now people think this is going to be a good year, and most kind of worried about what the story is going to be come fall and winter, and I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what's going on, and I think that's welcome to construction is uncertainty.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I don't really have anything else to add about the Omaha market since there's 5 of us here. You've heard it all. I will say I agree with Matt completely on we're going to know a whole lot more in October at our next meeting. And one of my friends said, we're used to saying there's a lot of moving parts. Well, right now, all the parts are moving. So we just got to wait for it to settle out.
That's right. Good way to say it. Thank you. Tom, did you want to add something?
I was going to make one other comment. We measure inflation every week, and we measure it on 14,000 items, and they're weighted. And food inflation last week hit the lowest point it's been in probably a year. It was 2.9%. And probably the big contributors to that were probably the protein category. But anyway, food inflation is in good shape.
Thank you. Well, we're back to you, Keisha.
Okay, so they're updated. These show the averages then it shows our adjusted numbers, Department of Revenue's adjusted numbers, and then the averages. So this is what it looks like relative to those adjustments based on the April data for both of us and then for the P-TEC amount for ours. It's a little blurry, isn't it?
Yes.
I thought it was just.
Before we start voting, could you also show the other 2 years in terms of the updates, just so I can see if
Yeah, oh, that's better, yeah.
that is a lot better?
Yeah, so for the second year, fiscal year 26, the revised numbers look like this. I updated the distribution of the income tax and individual income tax and corporate income tax for our model only. So that changes the amounts for those two taxes, averages.
Because Department of Revenue is not suggesting any changes from what was sent.
We only changing on the first.
Right,
First year.
right. So this,
The only change on fiscal year 26 is our adjustment of $200 million from individual to corporate. So,
okay, I think I've got that one. Now the third.
okay, yeah, the third year. Oops, I went too far. Fiscal year 27, this is the same adjustment as in fiscal year 26. So,
Okay, so
200 million
yes,
from individual.
from individual to corporate.
So 2, 6, 7, 8.
And if you could go back to the current fiscal year, what,
Could you hold on just 1 second? Sorry. Got it. Thank you. I apologize.
no, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
Okay.
The current fiscal year, and what
Yes.
changes did you make on that one again?
So on the changes here, I reduced the Department of Revenue's individual income tax number by 50 million and corporate income tax number by 50 million based on WAFU's discussion of their adjustments. And on ours, the individual income tax on both of these for our model was reduced by 200 million and corporate income tax increased by 100 million.
Thank you. So we're ready to start voting. We'll start with the current fiscal year, the pink sheet. We'll do sales and use tax first. Thank you.
So the high is 2.5 billion, the low is 2,490,000, and the average is 2,495,333. 495,333,000, sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'd move 2,495,000,000.
I'll second.
I have a motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Henning? Mr. Henning?
Your vote.
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne.
Yes.
Motion carries, $2,495,000,000. Now we will do the individual income tax.
Yeah. So the high is 2,400,000,000, the low is 2,100,000,000, average 2,268,000,000.
I'll move 2,300,000,000.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 2.3 billion. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Carp,
No.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
No.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning.
Yes.
Motion carries, 2.3 billion. If it pleases the board, we'll combine corporate income tax and miscellaneous taxes.
Did I miss the trash can?
Bear with me just for a second.
We're expecting good shuffle, so his just isn't the last one that goes.
A good shuffle.
Like the whole deal.
There you go.
If you have questions about mathematics, either Kisha or Wapu can help you.
Just ask for the model.
So the high is 1,135,000,000, the low is 1,000,000,000, and the average is 1,084,889,000.
Mr. Chairman, I move 1,000,000,001.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 1,000,000,001. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
No.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
No.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp.
Yes.
What's the vote? Vote carries.
Go this way.
Easy way out.
I feel consensus building.
Mr. Chairman, I have an idea.
That's great. What might that be?
350 million.
I'll second it. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. McGinnis,
Aye.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen.
Yes.
Motion carries. No surprise.
So the total is, for fiscal year 25, 6,245,000,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for the year 6,245,000.
We have a motion.
6,245,000,000.
A second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Miltenberger?
Yeah.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes. Motion carries. We will now move on to fiscal year 2025-2026. Sales and use tax.
Okay, I'll deal with it later.
It's true. It's true.
That's 3,600. 2675. 600. 26. 2619.
Okay, so the high is 2,675,000,000, the low is 2,600,000,000, the average 2,613,000,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move 2,600,000,000.
Second.
A motion second for 2.6 billion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Motion carries. 2.6 billion. We will now do individual income tax.
Mr. Chairman, I move 2,675,000,000.
No, we already got that one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Keep on rolling.
wake me up.
So the high is 3,150,000,000, the low is 2,800,000,000, for an average of 3,058,889,000.
I'd move for 3,050,000,000.
Second.
Have a motion and second for 3,050,000,000. Roll call, please.
Mr. Celine,
No.
Ms. Anderson,
No,
Mr. Bourne,
You said 350?
3,050,000,000.
3050.
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
No.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
No.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meiskeier,
Yes.
I think the yeas have it. The yeas have it, 5-4, motion carries. What was that number again? 3050?
Yes.
Now we'll do corporate income tax and miscellaneous.
So 950.
So the high is 1.1 billion, the low is 815,000,000, the average is 912,222,000.
Can you take out the 1.1 billion, just so I can see what the average would be with that? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move 875 billion, or 875 million, sorry.
You have a motion, is there a second? 875?
Second.
You have a motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Ms. Anderson,
no,
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
No.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
No.
Mr. Miltenberger,
No.
Mr. Meiskeier,
No.
Mr. Celine,
No.
Motion does not carry. Anyone care to offer an alternative?
Mr. Chairman, I move 900 million.
Second.
Second.
You have a motion and second,
Yep, second.
any discussion? Hearing none, let's do the roll call again for 900 million.
Ms. Anderson,
yes,
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
No.
Mr. McGinnis,
No.
Mr. Miltenberger,
No.
Mr. Meiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
I expected that.
Yeah.
Motion carries. 900 million.
I was missing.
I got put mine in. Sorry, I didn't do both at the same time. I apologize. Sorry about that. Shuffle it good.
Yeah.
It is very unusual,
Still 15,
but the conversations we need.
I was trying to make up for it.
Results for the discussions will be better information.
Good one, okay.
I have no idea. Your number.
Shuffle them again.
Mine's the one ending in 999.
315, 314, 315, 320, 314.
Okay, so the high is 320 million, the low is 314 million, average 315,889,000.
Motion?
I have another idea. I moved 315 million.
Second.
Motion and second for 315 million. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Miss Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Good idea.
So the total for fiscal year 26 is 6,865,000,000.
6,855.
865.
65, thank you.
Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please. 6,865,000,000.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger.
Yes.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne.
Yes.
Not surprisingly, motion carries. We'll now do fiscal year 2026, 2027, sales and use tax.
You better beat that number.
Yes.
750.
The high is 2,750,000,000, the low is 2,600,000,000, the average 2,691,000,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move 2.7 billion.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 2.7 billion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Maiskeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning.
Yes.
Motion carries. Individual income tax is next. No, just individual
Oh, I'm
income
sorry.
tax.
Getting late.
Oh, 27. 3,000.
So the high is 3.2 billion, the low is 2.7 billion, sorry, and the average is 3,050 million.
Mr. Chairman, I move for 3,100,000,000.
Second.
Motion and second is for 3.1 billion. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meisgeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll do corporate income tax and miscellaneous taxes.
Waffle, did you get Steve?
Sorry.
Nothing personal, Steve.
Yeah. My estimates are real close anyway.
$760.
The high is 950 million, the low is 760 million, for an average of 849 million.
How much is it if you take that 760 in?
Moves the average up to 860.
Mr. Chairman,
825 million.
We have a motion for 825. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
it's too low.
I know how you're gonna vote.
Put it out.
I want to get home.
Okay, what was the number again?
825.
825. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltenberger.
No.
Mr. Meisgeier,
No.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
No.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
No.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
5 to 4 in favor. 5 to 4 in favor. Motion carries.
Boy, no.
Your vote was really important, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
One vote counts.
So the high is 300 million, the low is 295 million, average is 298,556,000.
Mr. Chairman, I move 300 million.
Second.
A motion and second for 300 million. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Miltenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meisgeier,
The motion is 300.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes. Motion carries.
So the total is 6,925,000,000.
Mr. Chairman, I move for fiscal year 26-27 receipts at $6,925,000,000.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 6.925 billion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Meinzgeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Miltonberger.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. We have a forecast. Time will tell whether it was a good one. We'll see.
Yeah.
We need to select a date for our next meeting in October. The 31st of October is on a Friday. First, does that work with your staff? So my question to this group is,
If we can get home for time for trick or treating.
that's right.
Only if you come in costume.
Can we do a theme?
That'll save time.
First of all, 31st work for everyone. Does anyone have a preference, morning or afternoon? Wide open. I think for those of you who want to go trick or treating, it should be in the morning. Morning work for you?
Yes.
Okay. What time? 10?
For us,
Okay, so we are going to vote on, we have a motion and second for Friday, October 31st at 10 a.m. We have a motion and second.
So moved.
Okay.
Call sir, who did what? Do you want to have, did you get that? Okay, can you do a motion and second again?
So moved.
Second. Got it. Okay, motion and second, October 31st, 10 a.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Millenberger,
yes.
Mr. Meinzgeier.
Yes. Motion carries. Public comment time, anyone would like to say anything to the board or staff? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So now it's time to get a motion and a second for adjournment. Unless there's something else that any of the board members would like to say. Nope, okay, motion and second, please.
Second.
You have a motion, you have a second, roll call.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Henning,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Millenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Meinzgeier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine.
Yes.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you
Safe
all.
travels to everyone.
Thank you. You take care of yourself.
I will. We'll see you next time.
Lucy.
Yes.
See you, Rich.
Yes.
Tom? Yes, very good. Yeah, take care. Thank you.
So we'll both get home early enough to handle the kids coming to school.
Yeah.
All right. Safe travel, so. How's your
That's
day?
right.
They're
All
fine.
right. You can do that.
You got any kids?
Long drive?
Sorry?
Yeah. Go for it.
I have a son.
Drive safe.
Brian Hill. He's an IT assistant administrator.
That was cute.
Loves his job.
It's actually really good. For a minute, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
This is really good.
That led the debate we had.